What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the fifth episode of the Big Five podcast. I am your host, Kyle Morello, and my co-host right across the screen from me there, or next to me, where I'm recording in a minimized window, so he's across from me. But next to me, Jake Copestick. Jake, how we doing? Did I just call you Jake?
Yeah,
Hold
great. It's
on.
okay. It's all
Oh,
right.
that's
It's
so ugly.
believe me, it's all right. It's all
Oh
right.
no, I know it's all
Don't
right, but I just
don't
never
feel
call you
bad.
Jake. I don't feel bad. It's just weird. I've known you for almost 5 years, and I think I've called you Jake less than 10 times. So, other than introducing you, because I introduced you as Jake, because nobody knows what Cope is. But
Yeah, it's
anyway,
okay.
Cope,
Don't
how we
feel bad.
doing?
I'm doing good outside of you, that whole blunder. But hey, it's feast week. It's the basically like the big opening weekend of college basketball here. Yeah, we've been at it for a week or two now, but this is like the kind of big explosion of everything happening. This is where people are flying places. You have Thanksgiving tournaments. We had some pre-Thanksgiving tournaments. People are flying to Florida. People are flying international. The battle for Atlantis is about to start. The Maui Invitational just started. So this is kind of college basketball's arrival on the scene to the sports calendar right now. Is there's a bunch of different tournaments going on, a lot of really big games in the non-conference slate happening. So I've been busy with a lot of different things, but been able to watch some college basketball. I watched the Maui Invitational. I have my Penn crew neck again. Big win for the Quakers on Saturday. First win over Princeton in 5 seasons to end the season 8-2. So good weekend. Been busy, but I'm doing well. Feast weeks here. College basketball is officially, if it wasn't back already, it's officially back now that it's feast week and we're in the swing of things. So looking forward to talking about a lot of college ball. A lot of these teams in the Big Five are going to be traveling places. So I'm looking forward to talking about that.
Yeah, it's exciting. Feast week, everybody loves Feast week. Feast week's the best. Plus, it coincides with, the holiday, obviously on Thursday, Thanksgiving. That's my personal favorite holiday, so I'm very excited. But then you got football and everything like that. So, plus the World Cup going on right now. Tough draw for the USA the other day, but you know, it's better than a loss, so we'll take that. But yeah, there's a lot going on right now, so we're gonna get into it. We got some Big Five games to go over from this past weekend. Now, just forewarning, there were a lot of games this past weekend. Now this is coming out on Tuesday night. We're not gonna have time to go over every single game, but we're gonna go over one game from each team. So just to preface that, if you don't hear us talking about a game that happened on maybe Friday or Saturday, we did see it, and it is part of our analysis and how we're going forward, but we're not going to be going over those games in particular. Except for the one game on Friday with Penn because they haven't played since then, but we'll get to that. Actually, why don't we get to that right now? Let's go to the Penn game because it was ugly. We're not going to spend much time on it. They lost 92-58 to West Virginia. No Jordan Dingle in this one, so I will give them a little bit of credit, but it was just bad. They only shot 35%, which foreshadowing that will be a common theme with some of these games that we are going to see. Clark Slacker, 20 points on 7 of 17 shooting, led the way for the Quakers. They actually out-rebounded West Virginia 30-27, which I thought was a little surprising. But the big kicker here, and once again, a little bit of foreshadowing, you're going to see this a little bit from these Big Five teams this week. It was not the greatest weekend from them, but 18 turnovers for Penn in this one. Like I said, we don't need to spend a lot of time in this game, but Cope, what are your takeaways from this ugly loss to the Mountaineers?
Well, when we were talking about the preview of this game, we had said like if they turn the ball over against West Virginia, who is inevitably going to press them, who's going to be up in their face in the half court and is not going to allow anything easy for them, and then if Penn turns the ball over, then unfortunately the game's going to get away from them quick and the game's going to be over. That's just kind of what happened here. You have to take into account Jordan Dingle's injury. Unfortunately, with college basketball, it's just a sport where when guys are out, you don't really find out until about an hour before game time. So even while our pod was released, we were still hours prior to finding out the news about Jordan Dingle. College basketball is just a sport where that happens, unfortunately. You don't find these things out until an hour, literally before tip-off. So we find that Jordan Dingle is out, and then that completely shifts how we view this game at all. There's just not a lot of offense that on this team that, as far as the caliber of Jordan Dingle goes, there's not many guys on this team that are able to do that on like a nightly basis. What he does, obviously, he's a special player in this league. He's one of the best players in the Ivy League and the Big Five. Like, not many people can. But when you miss a guy like that, especially on short notice like that, it's got to be deflating, not know you have one of your best players out there. So we're going to talk more about his health because John Rothstein did report today that he's going to play. He's going to try to give it a go today at Lafayette and is going to try and play. But but I tweeted that when I was at the Drexel game last Monday or Tuesday, he rolled his ankle like literally the first play, and he came up and he re-aggravated whatever injury it looked like he had. He had a nice reverse layup on the baseline, literally the first play of the game, and he seemed like he was fine. Apparently, that's not the case because he's going to miss. He missed the game, and it looks like he was kind of like a last minute decision to get in for this one. That's what it sounded like. But it sounds like he's going to play tonight against Lafayette. But not having him, that's kind of where this game turned. Like if West Virginia pressed the hell out of him, made life difficult for him, you don't have your best scorer and one of your best ball handlers. Like it's tough to overcome that, especially going into a place like that. So unfortunately, just kind of put them behind the eight ball. Turn the ball over that many times, not having a score, not having another ball handler. And that's just what kind of did him in. It's what happens when you play against these teams and you step up in competition, especially against a team like West Virginia. It's going to play very good defense.
I was just gonna say, that's Bob Huggins' style of ball. He presses, good defense. You look at a lot of the players that they've had in the past, they get up on you. And when you don't have your best ball handler and you don't have everything like that, and your leading scorer, it's not going to end well, and it did not end well. Yeah, that was brutal. We don't need to spend a lot of time on that. It's one of those things you just kind of burn the tape, or maybe you don't burn the tape. Maybe you try to learn from it too. But it was an ugly one. That's for sure. But they will bounce back. We'll talk a little bit later about Mr. Dingle's health, so we'll get into that in our little previews. I do want to go over another game that was on the uglier side, at least very much in the first half. And this was on Monday night, St. Joe's in Georgia. St. Joe's was down 38-15 at the half. That's not going to play. That's not going to work. They shot 36.8% as a team, 12.5% from three. Reynolds was 3 of 12 for 10 points. They had three guys who had 10 points, so there wasn't really a whole lot of scoring there. Those are the three leading scorers. Positive note though, number one, it was 66-53 at the end. So they did fight back, which, credit to them for making it a game a little bit and showing hard. That's important. Rasheer Fleming also making his debut, had 7 and 6. Didn't play a ton, but positives from the freshman. We're going to want to see more of him as the season goes on because he's a pretty talented guy. Another positive, they did hold Georgia to 34%. So really not a whole lot of shooting. Great shooting going on in this game. A lot of defense, a lot of ugly misses and whatnot. So yeah, and they were out rebounded 39-32. So it was just not a great effort. You kind of, I know they're only 2-2 in the season, but it's early, but you kind of have to wonder at what point are we going to start considering some Billy Lang, hot seatness. What do you think?
So me personally, and it's kind of easy to, I guess, get on his case as far as when you look at his win-loss record here. But you look at what their AD came out and said last year that she was going to give him another year. Obviously, he's not at a school where you have a ton of resources like a Duke, Kentucky, schools like that of course are in a rare spot with all the resources that they have. But, it takes time at these places, especially when it takes time for you to build a coaching staff, maybe some guys, some assistants leave, you have players transfer. It takes time for you to get your guys in the program and really, really settle and establish a culture. I really hate using that word because everybody uses it.
But it's true.
Like, this is college basketball is a sport where you need a strong culture in your program to do well. Look at all the programs that do well in all the schools that perform at a high level every year. They have great culture. Look at Houston. I mean, out of nowhere, they are now a powerhouse, but that's because they have some of the best culture in college basketball. And look at the way they play, the values and everything they want to play with. Like, they're some of the best. But next year, he's got a good class coming in. We talked a lot about Christ Esendoko in the beginning of our pod and our series here. He's going to be part of that class next year now that he's not playing this year. You talk about Anthony Finkley, Xavier Brown from the Philly area, some local guys. So he's got a nice class coming in, especially when you add Christ into that mix as well. And I just think that after 4 seasons, this isn't like a place where you have a ton of resources compared to a big Power 5 school. Phil Martelli made it look easy because he was such a great coach at St. Joe's. He made winning there look easy because he was that good. So it's not that everybody can do it. Not everybody's Phil Martelli. So it's not as easy for everybody. It's easy to say he's on the hot seat because of his win-loss record, but he had a COVID year in there too. That was tough with a lot of cancellations and it was rough for everybody.
Well, I think the reason I say that is just because And I think I forget exactly where I saw it today. It was one of the accounts that I follow on Twitter about the St. Joe's or the Big Five, one of the two. But he has more talent this year. And granted, it's only 4 games in, so like I don't want to overreact too much, but like I don't think he's showing yet that he can like coach that kind of talent to the level that he wants to and that the team can play at based on the talent level. Like, do you think that's true, or do you think it's just too early to tell?
I really do think it's too early to tell. Like he's just now getting his guys in there. Like I think this is a good freshman class. You brought up Bashir Fleming. He actually played in the Houston game. Unfortunately, sprained his ankle, and he had a little ankle injury going on there, so he missed a couple games. But I think he's another guy that's going to be a part of their program for the entirety of his college tenure, who can be a good player. Christian Winboard as well, even though he's young, these guys are going to take their lumps early, even if they don't play too well. But I think they'll end up being good players. And because of that, like I think it just needs time. Now that he's recruiting his guys, it isn't just like, okay, well, I took over as a new coach. Let me deal with the holdovers, try and bring in some transfers, throw a roster together like these other coaches have to do it when they take over new jobs. So I definitely think there could be some validity to that when you look at win-loss record specifically. But I think that there needs to be some more time here. Let him get all his guys in the program. Let him recruit his guys and then see what he can do. And if it's not working out, then you can make a move. I just think now is a little early to tell. And that he started out in the COVID year. One of his first years was the COVID year, and that I feel like you got to throw away for a lot of different people. Obviously, the loss wasn't great, especially when you talk about not even scoring 20 points at halftime and kind of doing a Louisville like what they did today in Maui against Texas Tech. It's not great, but they're still young. He still has a good class coming in next year that, you don't want to miss out on losing those recruits if you were to fire him. You would at least want to see what he wants to do with those guys. So completely understand where you're coming from. It's been a couple of years now. The win-loss record is a great, whether that's non-conference, whether it's in conference, but I think you still got to give Billy Lang just a little bit more time here.
Okay, that's fair. I mean, listen, I like a very good point with the recruits is that a lot of times when coaches get fired, they go another direction. Either they follow the coach or they just go to their second, third choice, whatever it is. So, and they do have a good recruiting class coming in. So I do get that. That's a very good point. I don't know. For me, like I don't want to overreact, like I said, but it's starting to, it's been a few years now. It's starting to get to the effect where like, when are we going to see whether or not he's a good coach? Because now the talent's starting to catch up a little bit, and he has done a good job recruiting. Let's start to see it on the court. That's where you get paid the money. Obviously, you get paid money to recruit too, but you have to win games too. So we will see. It was an ugly showing against Georgia, but hopefully they'll bounce back tonight, Tuesday night against Lafayette. We'll talk about that game briefly a little bit later. Let's go to another game that happened on Monday night. Temple and St. John's, the Empire Classic. Temple losing this one 78 to 72. And again, the big thing from a Big Five team in these early season games, 21 turnovers for the Owls. I'm going to repeat that. 21. They scored 3 touchdowns worth of turnovers for our football people out there. St. John's had 14 steals to Temple's 4. Now, Jameel Reynolds has been playing exceptional so far this early season, and he had his best game, I think, on Monday night. 21 points on 8 of 10, 8 rebounds. Caleb Battle also 17 points off the bench, only 7-16 shooting, though. The bench, he also had like the vast majority of the bench points in that game for the Owls. It's just they have the talent to. Not saying St. John's is a bad team at all. St. John's is a good team, and it was a really good game. And obviously more of a home game for St. John's being at the Barclays Center than, because they're right in Queens. But at some point, they have to just win these games. Like they have to stop making excuses. Obviously, they lost to Wagner and they lost to Vanderbilt both in overtime at home. Now we're on the road and we're playing these preseason tournaments. They got Richmond's at the time we're recording this in like an hour. So they have to win. Like they have to start putting together some wins soon. What do you think they can do to accomplish that? And what do you see in this game against St. John's?
So yeah, I mean it's we've talked about this literally the entire time we've been recording. Like they can't be wishy-washy here. They have to be. We need some consistency from this team. They certainly have the talent to win games and to be like that and to build a legitimate tournament resume, but we need some consistency here. You can't turn the ball over 21 times and expect to win. St. John's is a team that They're fast, they're athletic, they want to get out and transition. Like that's exactly what they want to do. They want to turn you over, they want to force you into taking bad shots. They can get out and run. They don't really want to run a half court offense. They want to get out with their athletes, their speed. They're kind of deep. They just want to get out and they want to score easy buckets. And when you're going to give that to them and you're going to give them the ball, you're not gonna beat this team. So it's just a shame that we keep having to talk about this. I felt like this is a game that they really could win. I really felt like this is a very winnable game for Temple, even against the team in the Big East that I think has a legitimate shot to get an at-large bid in the tournament this year in the Johnnies. But that many turnovers, battle with you need that scoring from him off the bench if he's going to be your sixth man. He's not going to start. You need that scoring from him. But in a game where Damian Dunn didn't shoot great and wasn't the leading scorer in America like we know him to be, which is going to happen. You're going to have bad games. Just what happens in basketball. We need somebody else to pick up here. Jamil Reynolds had another good game. I'm telling you, this guy is probably the best center that they've had in, I don't know if I want to say a decade, but it certainly
Something
might
like
feel
that.
like that as far as offense goes. I mean, this guy's young. He's only a sophomore. They're pounding the ball inside to him. It's good. They're going to need him to keep doing that if they can have an inside game as part of their offense here. But I just feel like they need offensively. It just kind of feels like it's kind of like Caleb Battle or Damian Dunn, like make a play here sometimes. I feel like they're kind of too reliant on those guys when they're on the court. If it's Dunn that's out and it's Battle that's in, or it's Dunn that's in the game, I just feel like they can be a little reliant on those two to make plays for them on offense and to just kind of figure it out. So they're going to need more scoring. Guy you can look at is Jalil White. Really, and as far as point production goes, hasn't really given them much this year. And yeah, he's definitely known for his defense, and that's why he's out there. But you look at some of these guys, and it's like, hey, like if Damian Dunn and Battle aren't on, which we've seen them have bad games this year, it's just what happens in basketball. You need guys like that to step up, especially guys that have been in the program for a couple of years. So it's disappointing. They have another one tonight against Richmond. I feel like this is another game that they can win. But to turn the ball over as many times as they did, to kind of falter down the stretch and not be able to score in crunch time, like it's just disappointing. This team's got all the talent, as I believe, to make the tournament and to get there and to potentially get an at-large bid and sneak in here. But at this pace, that's pretty much gone at this point. They really have to stack wins here at an alarming clip to even get close to that. So it's tough because we've seen them beat Villanova, they beat Rutgers, beat teams that have been in the tournament and are legit programs, but to not be able to string together wins like this and to be on off, not be able to even string two together right now, it's definitely disappointing.
Yeah, and there's a couple things I want to talk about what you just said. Number one, Jalil White just has nothing offensively, just nothing offensively to provide. And like you said, like they're really relying on Battle and Dunn, and I guess now Reynolds too, which is good that they have a third option they can go down low to. But in terms of creating, when those guys aren't on or they aren't on the court, even who's stepping up? Like Heiser Miller could step up, but like he's been okay. Zach Hicks is trying to find his form shooting. He had a good game against Rutgers, so that was good to see. But Joel White's providing nothing on the offensive end. Granted, we do love his defense, and we're like, it's good what he's providing on the defensive end, but you can't be a liability on offense, and he has been. It's unfortunate. I don't want to like bash the guy. Seems like a great kid, but he's been a liability on the offensive end. That's part of the solution here. We need to get some more out of him. And like you said about the tournament, the one thing I will say that is in Temple's favor is that a lot of times, I don't want to say recency bias, but a lot of times some late season wins against tough conference opponents can outweigh November losses against bad opponents. We've seen it time and time again from the selection committee come March. So that can be a remedy for them for some of their early season failures so far, losing to Wagner and Vanderbilt, like we talked about. Losing to St. John's isn't the worst thing in the world, but like they're a good team, but you like to win these games, and definitely we'll see against Richmond. I think they can beat Richmond. It's just, and obviously the Villanova one's great too, because they're going to make the tournament, but it's some of these things where like now we need to win games later in the season. Whereas if we just won these games now, those become a luxury, not a necessity. So it's going to be interesting what happens. I still think they can make the tournament. I still think they have a really talented team, but they need to start putting it together. And 21 turnovers, like you said, cannot happen. So they need to clean it up. All right, let's go to another game that happens this weekend. LaSalle taking on Georgetown. Obviously they did lose to Wake Forest on Friday. That was a tough game. We're not going to really go over that one though. We're going to go over this Georgetown game. They lost 69-62. They only shot 38% from the field. Again, a lot of these Big Five teams not shooting very well in these games. Jameer Brickus led the team with 14 points. They once again had 13 turnovers as a team. This stat that I'm about to read to you, I was dumbfounded when I saw 43.8% from the free throw line. They are free. Why are we going 7 of 16 from the free throw line? And they only lost by 7. So they hit a few more of those. They're in this game, and it's not nearly what it is on paper. What do you take away from this game? Because this was a little bit of a disappointing one.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's some positives you can take from this game as far as they were down 20 plus going to the second half, and they were able to come back and they were able to make this a game and almost sneak one out here. But when you put yourself in a hole like that and you're digging yourself out of it the whole game, it's hard to pull out wins like that. So, we talked about this last week when I was at the Drexel Penn game, and Drexel was also sub 50% from the free throw line in that game. And if you're in a close game, you leave that much money at the table on the free throw line, you're not going to win. That's a stat that like you need to convert at a high clip. Villanova was so good last year because they shot free throws so well. They were anytime that they were in a close game, you could always count on them, even if they had a small lead late in the second half. You could always count on them to hit their free throws and not squander away games like that. So, anytime you do that, you put yourself behind the 8 ball here, and you make it tough to win when you miss the free ones like that, especially in a game where they miss that many free throws. They go 7 of 16 and they only lose by a handful of points. So to see that is disappointing. It's definitely something that I think you can work on though, and you can get better at. I don't believe they've been shooting like that all year. I think that's kind of an outlier more than regular occurrence you're going to see from them. But to go down that many points and then to just struggle offensively a little bit. Nice to see Break score 14 and kind of get out of a little bit of a rut that he was in. And then Buddy and Gill played another good game, getting double-digit points, grabbing 7 boards, 3 assists off the bench. This team's going to need some depth, especially at the guard spot. So that way you don't have to play Brantley and Brickus and Nickelberry, a ton of minutes. You can get them a bit of a rest. And when you can bring in a guy like Gill, who's known for his defense, who can also chip in for some scoring as well, I think that's some positive you could take away from this game. Now, negatively, he's got killed inside. Kudus Wahab at 23 points for Georgetown. If you remember him, he was at Georgetown. He transferred to Maryland, and then he transferred right back to Georgetown this year. So he's in his second stint with the Hoyas. But killed him inside with 23 points. Whether that's Mamadou Ducore, whether that's Josius, even though I know he's coming off a bit of an ankle injury. Kind of got to see, what's the deal here with the center spot? Ducore doesn't play a ton of minutes. Sometimes they like to go small, and with the opponents they've been playing, they have the ability to do it with the Drame twins. But when you go up against a team that's got legit 7-foot size like this, what are we going to do at center here? Is Ducore going to play 19, 20 minutes? Are you going to play him for extended periods of time? Is he in shape to play that many minutes? Or are you going to give the young fella Josius some time here? So definitely something to monitor with LaSalle when they play teams like this that have legit size. What are they going to do at center? Because earlier, with these games they've had in the season, they can get away with playing small with the Drame twins. So this is a game where we saw they played a legit 7-footer, kind of got killed inside. We'll see when they play opponents like this what happens down the road, but certainly that wasn't promising to see them get dominated inside like they did from Kudus Wahab.
No, not promising at all. But they might just be one of those teams that they have a couple guys with size, but they'd rather go small, and they would rather match up with teams who would like to go small. We saw in their first, for their first couple of wins, they did that, and they relied on the Drame twins, and it turned out well for them, and they won those games, specifically against Wagner. I remember, Wagner's not a very big team, and it worked. Unfortunately, against Georgetown, with the size that they have, did not work. So, we'll see. It's going to be interesting when they go up against teams like that, and there definitely are teams that they are going to face that have those size. So we'll see. It'll be a challenge for them, but it'll be on Coach Dunphy to coach them and overcome that, and hopefully, obviously, the health. Why am I absolutely blanking? Joe How do you pronounce his name?
Rokas Jocius.
Jocius. I was gonna say
Excuse me, Belgium.
Jokius. Jocius. Brain fart. Anyway, his health obviously matters too. So, and his experience level, he'll get to play more as time goes on. So that'll be something to look out for the Explorers there. All right. Last one of the games that we have to go over from this past weekend. And it was a battle of two powerhouses. It was a close battle. Michigan State beating Nova 73-71. There were some positives for Nova. There were some negatives for Nova. Nova was out rebounded 29-24. Nova was out assisted 22-15. However, some positives, only 6 turnovers, the complete opposite of all the other Big Five teams. And they actually forced Michigan State into 12 turnovers. So that was good on the defensive end. However, not good on the defensive end was that MSU shot 51.8% from the field. Now, granted, they have some shot makers on that team. When you're going against a team with that talent level, it's a little bit different, but still you kind of expect a little bit more defensively out of the Wildcats. Eric Dixon, heck of a game, 24 points on 9 of 14 from the field and 9 rebounds. Unfortunately for the Wildcats, they were outdone by some of Michigan State stars. Tyson Walker had 22-5, AJ Hoggard had 13-10. So it was a battle. That was an absolute battle. Obviously, Michigan State coming off their win against Kentucky. They have Tom Izzo. They're a top flight team. Are you concerned at all with how this one turned out? I know, Nova's still getting used to the Kyle Neptune era and everything, but what does this game speak to you?
So I was actually impressed with Nova. I really didn't like this spot at all for them. Coming off the ugly win against Delaware State, where they just unfortunately couldn't knock anything down from 3, and then the loss to Temple. Even to be in this game against a team that easily could have beat Gonzaga and Kentucky within a span of days, it was a very, very good Michigan State team. But, like you said, shot well. Tyson Walker had a good game. Joey Hauser continued off his performance against Kentucky with another good shooting game. You can't let those guys get open shots and be able to have room to knock them down. But it's a really, really tough place to play in East Lansing. They went in there, they almost won. And they overcame another kind of shaky game from Caleb Daniels. You look at the Temple game, the Delaware State game, where pretty much nobody shot well just because they couldn't knock down any threes. And then this game, there was another game where you have one of your stars not shoot the ball well, and you were still able to remain in the game and be competitive and almost come out here with a win. But another good game for Eric Dixon. I've said it before and I'll say it again. This is a so much better team when they play through Eric Dixon. He can score a little bit in the post. He can back guys down. He can draw some fouls, which he's so good at doing with the shot fake, but also his ability to pass the ball, be smart in the post, feel out double teams, and be able to kick the ball out to the 3-point line. This is just a way better team when they play through him and they allowed him to kind of facilitate for them, kick the ball out to open shooters, get his own on offense when they need buckets. So another good game for him. You're going to continue to see that. He played great down the stretch last year and had a good season last year. He's only going to continue to build on that this year as they need him to produce with no Justin Moore, Cam Whitmore. So sure, you would like to win this game, but for a tough place to play with a team that's coming off a loss and a shaky win against a team that they should have blown out, I think there's some positives you can take from this. And it will be better for it. I like teams that do this. I know it's a Gavitt games, so they get matched up with a team like this, but it's a tough place to play. And for a team like that that's still kind of young, beyond Slater, Dixon, and Daniels, I think they're only going to be better for this. So some positives you can definitely take. But number one, keep playing through Eric Dixon. They're going to win games if they keep doing that. He had another great game, whether that's getting rebounds, getting his own. When they need buckets, they can go to him and he can usually get them one. So I would say for them, that was another positive thing as far as, hey, this is working. Let's keep playing through him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the one thing I would think about it's character building, like you said, they're a young team outside of their 3 upperclassmen there. And this is kind of performances that you need because when you come March, there's going to be some hostile environments, and the Breslin Center is definitely one of them. So I'm glad they're able to experience that and, go against the Tom Izzo squad. That's very, very talented. And obviously the man himself is a very talented coach, as we've come to learn. So, they did battle. But unfortunately the camp a little short, but I think it'll be good for them, like you said. So not mad at that. All right. Going to the upcoming games now. Now, I will preface this by saying at the time of this recording, One of these games, which is the St. Joe's and USF games, kicking off in 4 minutes. So we're not really gonna say much about that game other than I think, listen, I don't want to speak for you, but I think the one thing they just need to do is shoot better and not turn the ball over. Um, I know you wanted to speak about this South Florida program a tiny bit because they're going through some interesting stuff, but yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's a game that Joe's can win.
Yeah, for sure. I will be like, I hope the next time we record, we don't have to talk about St. Joe's dropping a game to South Florida, who's yet to win a game this year. Keyshawn Bryant, transfer from South Carolina, is out. This team's lost some bad bye games. They lost to Stetson. Although, got to give Stetson credit for winning a lot of games here and winning some bye games that they've been getting paid, 5 and 6 figures for. But they don't have a win so far. Keyshawn Bryant's out. This team's just a mess. And to be honest with you, I think the Brian Gregory experiment is going to be over pretty soon with the South Florida Bulls. This team has just been kind of the bottom of the American the last couple of years. They just haven't been very good. Guys are leaving. Doesn't really seem like this is a good team, and they're kind of a mess. So St. Joe's needs to win this game because this is not going to be good if they lose this team, and we have to talk
We're
about
gonna have a lot to
them
talk
losing to
about
the
if that's not
Bulls
the
the
result we
time
want
that
to
we
do.
record. So
Yeah.
that's all I'll say about that because they should win this game straight up. That's all I think we really need to
Yeah.
say. This is
I mean, I don't think
they should win.
there's more that needs to be said. So we're gonna move on. St. Joe's better take care of business. Anyway, another game that's kicking off in probably a matter of moments. I think it's 7 or 7:30. Temple versus Richmond. We touched on it a little bit earlier. This needs to be a spot that the Owls prove that they can put something together. It needs to start right now against Richmond. I know by the time this comes out, the game will probably already be tipped off, but for our viewers and our listeners to go back and reference when they watch this game and after the game, what will Temple need to do to beat the Spiders?
So I have two things that I think in particular they really have to do to win this game. So number one, let's pound the ball inside. Matt Grace for Richmond, one of their upperclassmen, big guys, is probably not going to play in this game. He didn't play yesterday against Syracuse. So with that, that leaves Neil Quinn, who's a transfer from Lafayette, in there to man the middle for the Spiders. So pound the ball inside. There's not many guys that can match Jamil Reynolds' physicality and stature in the post. Let's pound the ball inside. He should have no problem trying to get looks and create some easy buckets on Neil Quinn. He should be able to create some space, create some looks for himself going against a guy who doesn't have the size and the stature that he does. And then number two, there's a legitimately very good A10 player here on the Spiders and Tyler Burton. He can shoot a little bit. He's a good athlete. He's got some long arms to get in the passing lanes, but keep an eye on him. That's a guy that Temple's not going to want to let hurt them today. So run him off the 3-point line. This team had to take and make a lot of threes playing against the Syracuse zone yesterday. So don't give them open looks on the 3-point line. Let's close out on shooters well, run guys off the line. Don't give them easy ones. But I tell you what, man, this Tyler Burton's a really good player for the Spiders, can shoot it. Like I said, he's a good athlete. Somebody that some NBA guys might be talking about soon down the road, kind of under the radar guys who wouldn't think to look at Richmond as far as pros go. But run them off the line for 3-pointers. Don't let Tyler Burton kill you. And let's pound the ball inside with Jamil Reynolds. He had a great game last night. Let's keep it going. Let's look for him early and often. Like I said, you should have no problem trying to get some looks on Neil Quinn, the Lafayette transfer in the post here. So let's keep building Jamil Reynolds' confidence. Let's go to him early and often. Let's get him in a rhythm. That'll open stuff for you outside. So run people off the 3-point line. Let's get the big fella some looks early. Let's make it easier for everybody else. And hopefully get Damian Dunn back into a shooting rhythm for this game. So again, like I said, this is a winnable game for the Owls tonight, but play good 3-point defense, and let's pound the ball inside early, open some stuff up outside later.
And one more thing, let's just not turn the ball over. Like, I know we harped on the 21 turnovers from the last game against St. John's earlier in the show, but listen, you just can't do it. You got to cut it down. That's the only way you're going to win the game is if you have possessions to put the ball in the hoop. So that's, very simple talk there. There's not a lot of analysis there other than just don't do it, man. Just don't turn the ball over. You can't, you're not going to win against Richmond if you turn the ball over. So definitely want to see the Owls step up with that. One more a little later tonight. Hopefully this will be out by the time that this game tips off. Penn versus Lafayette. Now we mentioned Jordan Dingle potentially being able to play in this game. We're going to hope that he is. Even if he's not, I definitely think this is a winnable game for the Quakers. what do you need to see whether or not Jordan Dingle plays that this Penn team can improve on to beat the Leopards?
So obviously you want to cut down on the amount of turnovers they had from the West Virginia game, but at the same time, like we need to see who if Dingle's not going to be 100% here for a little bit, potentially into the new year. With the season going on, I'm sure he's going to want to practice. He's going to want to play in games, unless they decide to sit him, he's not going to have a whole lot of time off here. So we got to see who's going to emerge. We talk so much about this team with the 1-2 punch of Jordan Dingle and Clark Slacker. Well, who else is going to step up and give him some offense here? Reese McMullen started this game at point for this team and helped out handle the ball with Clark Slacker in the last game against West Virginia. I'm sure if Jordan Dingle can't go in the future, that's probably what's going to happen, given that he's more of a natural point guard than some of the other guys that they have. But how about some guys knock down some threes, some scoring here, even if it's a balanced attack, and you just have some guys that give you 7, 8, 9, 10 points, something like that. I'm not saying you got to drop 30, but, let's see what the bench can do and some of these other guys can do. Because if you're going to be missing a guy of that caliber, Jordan Dingle, if he's not going to be 100%, if he's not going to play, now it sounds like he will tonight and he will be out there, but, who's going to help carry the load here if he can't go, if he's not going to be 100% and they put him on a potential minutes restriction tonight? Who's the other guys that are going to step up? George Smith and Jonah Charles have that potential to be guys who can knock down a lot of threes. So does Max Martz. But we need to see some consistency from these guys hitting shots. It's certainly there. We've seen them do it in the past. These guys are good shooters, but we need to see some offensive consistency besides somebody that's not Clark Slackert. If Dingle's not going to be 100%, is not going to play a ton of minutes in this game, because the West Virginia loss without Dingle just kind of showed that, hey, besides Slacker, like there's not a ton of, like, we need other guys to step up and score here. So mainly in this game, I'm looking to see obviously what the condition of Jordan Dingle is. If this is a game where he's trying to push through, or this is a game where he's like, hey, I feel good enough that I'll be able to go out there and no restrictions, that he's not trying to push himself. That's definitely something you got to monitor. But from this team, let's not turn the ball over. Let's see who's going to handle the ball. I'm sure it's going to be a lot of Reese McMullen tonight, but where's the offense going to come from? Because it's got to come from somebody, or else they're not going to win a whole lot of games. They need somebody else besides Clark Slacker and Dingle. So I'm still looking for that guy. Who's that kind of third option going to be, and that consistent guy on offense going to be for him.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the biggest thing. Like if Dingle can't go, or even if he can go and he's just hobbled, who's going to step up other than Clark Slacker? So we'll see if those guys can step up that you mentioned, because they're going to need it. They need offense. They've been consistently scoring, and not consistently, but there's been a few games where they've been in the 50s and low 60s, and it's not good. So they're going to do that, and just praying that Jordan Dingle's healthy, because when he's healthy, he's a really exciting basketball player to watch. He really, really is. So for Penn's season and just for Jordan Dingle's health and everything that goes with that, we're going to pray that he's healthy. Even if he's not healthy, I would almost rather him not push through it and just rest a little bit, especially now. We're only in November and going to be in early December soon. Like, it's more important for the stretch run in the Ivy League than right now. Granted, these matter too, obviously, but if he's not 100% and he's trying it and he's clearly just hobbled, like my preference, and I'm obviously not the coach or trainer or anything like that, or Jordan Dingle, but it would make sense for him to sit for a little bit, get the ankle right, come back healthy, and be ready to roll, because this Penn team's got a lot of talent on them. So we're gonna see with that. All right, the one game that isn't literally tonight that we can talk about is Villanova versus Iowa State. That is on Thursday. This Iowa State team is an interesting one, though they do not have Jeremiah Williams, the Temple transfer, so there's no Big Five connection there. Unfortunately, he had an Achilles injury right before the season started, so he's going to be out for the year, actually, which is very unfortunate, because he was a nice player for Temple. I was excited to see what he was going to do for Iowa State, so I'm a little disappointed in that, but this should be still a good game regardless. What can Nova clean up? I know we just talked about them not briefly. We just talked about them against the game of Michigan State. What can they clean up against Iowa State? And what kind of matchups are we looking for here against these Cyclones?
So as far as things that Nova can clean up, and I've been talking about this, since the season started, this is kind of an evolving situation for them. I'm looking to see which of these young guys is going to really fight for minutes, because, when you have Justin Moore and Cam Whitmore come back, those two guys are going to start. Archidiakono and presumably Longino are going to move to the bench. Longino being the sixth man, we know what he can do. But, beyond that, with these young guys, who's going to fight for minutes here? Who's going to fight? Who's going to produce and is going to fight to be on the court when the team gets fully healthy? So for me, that's something that I'm looking at. As I said, it's an evolving situation because these guys are still young. They're still learning on the fly. But hey, is there anybody here that can legitimately help you out when you get deep into the postseason here? So not only that, but let's try and get Caleb Daniels going. They haven't shot the ball particularly well the last couple games. Let's try and get Slater and Caleb Daniels going and get them hitting shots. This isn't a team that they're not going to beat themselves. They only turned the ball over 6 times at Michigan State, like you said. So it's not like, unlike the rest of the Big Five teams, they have to clean that up. But I just want to see which of these bench guys is gonna emerge here for them. I really like what Angelo Brizzi's giving them. Brandon Housen knocked down some shots in the Delaware State game. So like I said, it's an evolving situation. We'll keep tabs on what guys produce and are really going to fight for minutes as some of their veterans and Cam Whitmore come back and get healthy. As far as matchups go, I really liked this team last year. What a year they had on TJ Otzelberger's first year coming over from UNLV. He made the Sweet 16. They outperformed pretty much everybody. I mean, some people thought they were going to be dead last. They were coming off a year where they were 2-22 in the Big 12 in Steve Prohm's last year. And then TJ Otzelberger brings them to the Sweet 16, kind of throws together a roster with Tyrese Hunter coming in as a freshman. We knew how spectacular he was. He's not playing very well at Texas. Brings in Isaiah Brockington from Penn State, who is a terrific mid-range shooter and scorer for them. Some of those guys move on, unfortunately. And Jeremiah Williams, like you said, was supposed to come in and take that spot. He's a good defensive point guard, first and foremost with him. That's what he's going to bring you. And him missing out on this season and not being able to fill Tyrese Hunter's role leaves him with a true freshman in Taman Lipsey, who's going to come in and have to play. Unfortunately, he's a young guy, even though he's probably going to have to play behind Jeremiah Williams for the year. But the matchup inside is probably what I'm looking at with this game. Otzelberger brings in 2 centers via the transfer portal. Very, very good, long, athletic defensive centers who block a lot of shots in Oshun Oshuni from St. Bonaventure and Hassan Ward from VCU, bringing in a couple 8-10 guys. The calling card of this team last year was their defense. They were going to slow games down. Maybe it wasn't pretty in the half court on offense for them, but they were going to slow games down. They were going to defend their tails off, and they were going to grind games out and win ugly if they had to. So that's what this team's going to do. So as far as Villanova, you have to watch with these bigs because they're very athletic. They dunk the ball a lot, and they have very large lob radiuses. You can throw it up to these guys and they'll throw it down on you in the pick and roll. So you have to be weary of that. But if they play solid defense against this team in the half court, Villanova will win. Don't give them easy buckets, turn it over, and let them get buckets in transition. The Michigan State game, they didn't let them do that, which was good. But make this team work in the half court, and it probably won't be a good night for Iowa State. Like I said, this team last year, not terrific in the half court. That's just not what they were. They were a true defensive team last year. So you make them work in the half court. You don't give them easy looks. You make them burn the shot clock, hopefully get some bad shots at the end of the clock and really make them grind just to get a look. And they should have no problem here. But this is a good defensive team. They bring in some size, some athletes who can block a lot of shots around the rim. So that's definitely something to keep your eye on is how good will these shot blockers be? Because Oshun Oshuni at Bonaventure was since he really got on their campus, one of the best shot blockers in all of college basketball. So it's going to be a defensive matchup here. Just depends, hey, who's gonna be able to create more on offense, who's going to be able to score more. But I think this is going to be a slow game. Probably played a lot more in the half court than it will be getting out and running. But for me, whoever's the best defensive team will probably take the cake in this one.
All righty, sounds good to me. Nova, like we talked about, they forced MSU to get 12 turnovers in their previous game, but they let Michigan State shoot almost 52%. And they let some of their guards go off. And, we talked about Hauser too. So they have to do a little bit better job at that. But I think it'll be an easier game off on the defensive side than they were against Michigan State, kind of like you just talked about. They weren't really, I would say, wasn't really great in the half court last year. They're a defensive team, like we talked about. And with the new pieces there too, some of those guys leaving, it'll be a little more difficult. So I do expect Nova to win this game. But it will be a tough game, that's for sure, because they are really good on the defensive end. And sometimes some of Nova's players like Caleb Daniels could be a little streaky. So we're going to see what happens. But I do expect Nova to win this game, and it should be a good one. So very much looking forward to that. Other than that, though, there's not really a lot of games until the weekend and or next week, which we'll get into it a little bit later in the week. So I'm looking forward to that. But for this episode, I think we're pretty much done. Do you have anything else that you'd like to add?
No, it's nice to have a couple of days off. I feel like it's been so busy, and that the last couple of days for me, especially with everything going on, I feel like there's not enough hours in the day to get everything I want to get done. I feel like I'm so busy. So nice to have a little hiatus and a little break here. LaSalle's going to come back and play on Saturday against Binghamton. So they have some days off after being in Jamaica for a little bit. So we're gonna have a holiday coming up. We're gonna eat a lot of food, watch some ball, watch some football on Thursday, hang out with our families. So nice to have a couple of days off. Hopefully we can get back at you guys on Friday, preview some games coming up for the weekend, kind of preview or rather talk about what happened during feast week in these couple games here. So hopefully we can come back at you Friday with another episode. But until then, enjoy Thanksgiving, enjoy some time with your family, eat a lot of food, watch some football, watch some college hoops, and enjoy ourselves while we have a couple of days off here.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask you before we signed off here. You mentioned Thanksgiving, and I was gonna say a little something about Thanksgiving too. But favorite Thanksgiving side, what do you got?
Personally, I'm a green bean casserole guy. It's
Thank
always been
you,
one of my favorites.
thank you.
Yeah, I am not gonna take any slander. I eat a ton of it. I really enjoy green bean casserole. Not to mention it's good for you, but that's besides the point. I just really like green bean casserole. I'm not gonna take any slander on that. Sweet potatoes is definitely comes up there for me. If you put like brown sugar and like walnuts or pecans and then marshmallows on top of it, like that whole thing, I'm about to. But green bean casserole for me is up there. So I think I would probably say that right now off the top of my head.
I think I'm gonna say that too. Green bean casserole's always been one of my favorites. My grandma made an incredible recipe, and then she passed it to my mom. My mom makes an incredible recipe. I even made it myself one year when I was in Michigan, and I did a little Thanksgiving by myself. It wasn't bad. I mean, it was my first time making it, so it wasn't like mom's. But yeah, I mean, also mac and cheese too. You really can't go wrong with that. I know not every Thanksgiving dinner has mac and cheese. It's a little controversial topic, but green bean casserole, man, it's good. You get the little French onions in there. Perfect. But yes, everybody, please enjoy your Thanksgiving. Spend lots of time with family, friends, whoever you spend Thanksgiving with that make you happy. It's time to spend with family. Whether that is your chosen family or your birth family or whatever. But definitely make sure you spend some quality time with the people that you love and watch some football, watch some college basketball, watch some World Cup soccer this weekend too, and throughout the week, of course. That's not slowing down anytime soon. So definitely enjoy yourselves, eat some good food. And I'm not entirely sure right now when the next episode is going to come out because we are going to be busy with Thanksgiving and, work and everything like that. But we are going to get you content and we're going to keep you updated on our socials and everything. So be on the lookout for that. Speaking of socials, follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Big Five Pod or at Big Five Pod. Sorry. And also look at us for the Big Five Pod on Spotify and Apple Music. That's what I was trying to get to. And of course on YouTube. And yeah, we appreciate you guys so much for tuning in, whether it's via video or via audio. And that's all I got. So I'll see you guys late this week or early next week. Happy Thanksgiving.